So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Welcome to this edition of the STARS Alumni Lounge. I'm Tony Schönenberger. I'm the co-founder and executive chairman of STARS. We have actually two platforms. The STARS webinar is a public one, and the STARS Alumni Lounge, this one, it is a forum for STARS alumni, for friends of STARS, and for donors. So many more watch or will watch the recording then later on. Now today we have the great privilege to talk to Katja SEIDENSCHNUR. Katja is the Sustainability Director, Europe, Middle East and North Africa at Nestle. She has strategic and operational experience and responsibilities of more than 23 years, both at Nestle and Henkel. So Katja, thank you very much for joining this session. We very much look forward to your insights. I should also mention that Katja is a STARS alumna. We have now approximately 30 minutes. First, Katja will give a short presentation of approximately 10 minutes. Then we have a Q&A session. If you have any questions for Katja, please use the raise hand function. And I would like to encourage all of you to do it as quickly as possible, because time is very precious and we are running out of time very, very quickly. At this time, I should also mention that we are establishing a STARS alumni group focusing on sustainability and food. Already 6 STARS alumni joined this group. If interested, please write to me and we shall connect all the interested alumni. Now, Katja, Nestle is the biggest food company in the world. Some facts and figures, more than or approximately 270,000 employees in practically every country, 380 factories in 80 states, 85 billion of net sales, and more than 2,000 brands. So we very much look forward to your presentation on Nestle's climate roadmap to net zero. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you for everyone joining. Yes, I'm very happy to share with you today our actions on the climate roadmap, and as well some thoughts around paradigm shifts and how we're thinking about economy, and also about how we grow food. So the spirit that I would like to share with you is one of, as mentioned, focusing on action, focusing on solutions, focusing also on not just taking the responsibility. And I feel it's a great privilege to be working for Nestle to have some scale. So I clearly see sustainability as a responsibility, but also as a huge business opportunity, because for sure the pressures are going to increase. And as well, I think a key thing is to collaborate. So this is why I'm always happy when I can share what we are trying to do, and then also ask for support and some more collaborations, and even pre-competitive coalitions, and also for that for specific topics for the greater cause. So I will have about 18 slides. I'm a fast presenter because I want to share lots of content, but I will manage in approximately 10 minutes. So just to share, when we talk about sustainability, first of all, we talk about 3 pillars. So first of all, the impact on people's health through a nutritional and balanced diet. Secondly, talking about communities, so there are farmers' livelihoods, human rights, but also diversity, gender balance, youth, etc. And then very much the planet perspective, which is embracing climate circularity, so reducing waste, especially on packaging, biodiversity in nature, and also water regeneration. We have had quite a nice journey. So I joined my current position a year ago, and in the past year, I've really had a lot of learning, first of all, because I'm not a sustainability expert. I come from the business side, but I've learned a lot. And then one of the first things as well that I put out there was to formulate a North Star and an ambition for Nestle Europe, which was stated in a way that we want to accelerate and embed sustainability in the business. It's not a corporate ticking of the box initiative. It's really embedding it in every function, in every part of the organization, from the leadership team up to the shop floor, and leading the transformation, or advancing, how we say it now, a bit more maybe corporate on the global base, trying to advance the transformation to a regenerative, inclusive, and circular food system. And then as well, I've realized that there's lots of levers that I would want to tap into, which is brands, innovation, renovations, also looking at new business models, collaboration, advocacy, customer engagement to also reach the shoppers and the consumers. And then as well, looking at our operations and also our people to get them on board and to also use them as ambassadors. And actually, I have to say now, after 1 year, we have a great engagement and motivation. The people are super passionate and very excited about what we are trying to achieve, and as well what we are putting on the road. So maybe stepping back first, I think it's quite clear that we have an urgency. So I just wanted to give a big picture. First of all, despite increasing GDP, we are very far away from reaching the agreed United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The social inequality is growing. So the disparity between the rich and the poor is going up. That's one of the big problems. But then as well, the biggest problem is really on the planet side. So I like the book of Johan Rockström about Planetary Boundaries, very much fact-based and scientifically based. And he talks about these 4 planetary boundaries that we are overshooting and where we're reaching irreversible tipping points. And then on the bottom one, you see the turnaround that we need in terms of climate. I think that's quite clear, but I like the visual picture because it shows the amount of the challenge. And then on the right side, you see that there's a lot of risks also when you do materiality assessments or risk assessments. You can see that there's also a financial price tag basically to the risk of ecosystem collapse, which is valued $54 trillion, which is half of the world's GDP. So this is really, and this is a lot of the other problems are linked to that. So yes, just one more point on these planetary boundaries. Well, let me see, it's getting now messages. So some words on these planetary boundaries. So you see here that it's not just about climate change, but also we have lost 70% of the species in the last 50 years. So biodiversity loss, and that is also a foundation of food and of humanity. Deforestation is increasing as ever. And as well, the overuse of fertilizers is a problem in terms of the impact on water quality, for example. So we are the first generation to see the impact of, for example, climate change, and we are the last generation that can make a meaningful impact. So we really have the urgency to act now. It's not moving. Okay, now. So what can we do as Nestle? So we have been one of the first signatories in 2019 to sign the United Nations 1.5 pledge and to publish a detailed roadmap end of last year, which is publicly available. So nothing that we hide behind. We have shared it, a great detail that has been applauded as well by investors. And beyond the science-based target, mandatory commitments of reducing 50% by 2030 and net zero in 2050. We have done 2 things. We have set an interim target of 20% reduced by 8 million. And as well, with the action plan, we've been very specific on how we reach that. So we know how to get there. We are not there yet in terms of our bottom-up projects, but we know how to get there. The other point to highlight is this is the science-based net zero roadmap. So there's no carbon credits allowed. So no buying of some credits. Everything has to be inside our supply chain. And then this is just a high-level overview of our roadmap. And you can see that 70% of our footprint is coming from sourcing, so ingredients, working with agriculture. That's the scope 3 included. And the main actions there are no deforestation, working with regenerative agriculture, and as well planting trees. And more specifically, these are the different actions along the value chain that we have identified and that we are now implementing. I will come back to regenerative agriculture, which is a key pillar, but also in manufacturing, moving to renewable electricity, rethinking our logistics, making circular packaging, and as well transforming our portfolio into plant-based, and then advocating and implementing more transparency to the consumer through labeling, for example, but also through data systems, which can then look at the end-to-end value chain as well. One point that I want to highlight here is that we have looked at sustainability and what it means and what we are striving for, and considering that at the moment the majority of the food system is degenerating, or else the economies is degenerating, because we're not valuing nature and also the society as such. So where we need to get to is actually not just to maintain and to protect, but we need to rebuild. So this is why we really want to strive for the concept of regeneration. So that implies that we want to go beyond sustainability. We want to protect, restore, and rebuild. And that means, for example, the health of our soils, the biodiversity, the quality and the quantity of water, but also livelihoods and a fairer income distribution, and as well looking at the health and nutrition to make sure that we have good nutrition moving forward, and more resilience of farmers. So with the focus on agriculture, so just to make it practical, what does regeneration mean? So one element is the regenerative agriculture practices, and we have committed that by 2025, we will source 20% of our key ingredients through regenerative agriculture. At the moment, it's close to zero, and it's not really commonly available on the market, I would say. And the second point is, and then 40 million tons of ingredients by 2030 globally, so that's 50%. And then the second point is our reforestation program that we have started. So within our supply chain means, shade trees for cocoa, or some multiple crops in our coffee chain, and planting trees there. So we want to plant 20 million trees every year until 2030. So that gives 200 million trees. And why we're so excited about regenerative agriculture is that this has multiple benefits. So it's not just capturing carbon, but it's also having an impact on other areas. And basically, maybe also to explain, regenerative agriculture are certain practices which basically let nature and life thrive in the soil. So less synthetic and chemical fertilizers, moving more to organic fertilizers, then using crop cover, for example, but also planting trees and hedgerows, and also reducing the use of herbicides and pesticides. So this has an impact on carbon, but also on water, on biodiversity, more resilient farmers, because we expect that the farmers, after a dip of income reduction in the beginning for the transition, the farmer in the end will have at least the same yield, and he can also save on synthetic fertilizers. And it also has a positive impact on the soil. So very clear and good benefits on that. Then on packaging, because that's very visible also, and that is also a problem, we're testing new models like refill or reuse models. We are switching to better materials or recyclable materials, and we have committed to have 100% recyclable materials by 2025, and to reduce virgin plastic by 1/3 between 2018 and 2025 in absolute amount. And as well, we're investing into a packaging infrastructure, because the best material is of no value if there's no infrastructure in place. So let me look at my time. So I will be hurrying up. I will finish soon. I think this one is quite interesting, because we need to rethink a little bit with new models. So thinking less linear and more circular, connecting, for example, agriculture with our manufacturing, moving, from a linear supply chain perspective, really looking at the system and collaboration, like looking at the suppliers of the suppliers and the customers of our customers. And looking at as well, not just in a pure competitive mindset, but using collaboration, because otherwise we're not going to be able to change the whole system. And this is where we need joint forces. It's all about also measuring real and external impact and scaling up, and really, as I mentioned before, embedding it in our business. So that requires everyone to move. One example here is a collaboration that we have with our competitors in the UK on capsules, to collect capsules with Jacobs Douwe Egberts in order to get scale, because then it works. We've created even a third party to make the collaboration easier. And then I also wanted to highlight that there's a lot to do in terms of consumer education. So the consumer doesn't really know yet all of the problems. So we have a responsibility not just to be consumer centric, but actually to educate consumers through our brands for the highest impact possible. A few thoughts just on economy. So as mentioned, I've learned a lot, and I think that's part of the key to drive change is to educate ourselves. So I like the book Donut Economics. It's really quite eye-opening how we have defined economy so far and what maybe we should define economy. So what is really the success criteria of a society? Is it really GDP, or is it rather education or employment and other, to make people happy, basically? How do we define the success of a company? And as well, thinking about media and schools, is it not time for different education and rethinking and having more constructive journalism, focusing on solutions and really trying to drive the change? These are some other materials that I enjoy. Netflix documentaries, Kiss the Ground, Breaking Boundaries. If you're interested, it's worth watching 1 or 2 hours and invest. It's quite eye-opening. I'm reading currently The Future We Choose by Christiana Figueras, and she also has a podcast, Outrage and Optimism, which is very enlightening and as well quite interesting. Last but not least, what I always say at the end of any presentation is that every person can impact. You don't need to be paralyzed. We all can do something, first of all, as a business person, to drive scale. So each function can reach out and can drive the impact in everyday decisions of business. You're a citizen, so you can tell your friends and share what you have learned, use your political voice and your money. And as well as a consumer, as a shopper, there's plenty of things you can do, like reducing meat and dairy, reducing food waste, checking your electricity contracts, and as well, changing a bit of behavior in terms of reducing, reusing, recycling, repairing, and maybe rethinking what you really consume and what's really needed. So with that, I almost managed in 10 minutes, Tony. So I hand over back to you.
Thank you very much, Katja. Excellent presentation. I'd just like to encourage everybody now to raise hands if you have a question. We have approximately another 15 minutes to discuss a few issues with Katja. I take the privilege to ask the first question. Nestle says it's going to be a long journey. And obviously there are dramatic changes. We have seen it on your slides. Actually, you are restructuring the whole company in the end. What are right now the 3 biggest challenges for you?
I think the biggest challenge might be in maybe it's in getting the things rolling to get to some tipping point probably as well. So if I think about engaging farmers, we go to farmers and they've been doing farming for the past decades. There's an emotional aspect as well. There's a financial aspect and the risk, if you change practices from one day to another, from one season to another, that's your business, that's your livelihood, that's what the family is being nourished from. So to have enough evidence and confidence and also supporting them to make the transition, that's probably the most important thing, but that's also probably the most difficult thing. So having enough evidence and giving financial security, but also training, even emotional confidence that not the other neighbors are looking strange at them. What is he doing? Why is he stop tilling? Why is he reducing that? And also, sometimes I think some regulations are not really helping because the same company that is selling something might not have an interest for the farmer to change. So it's not so easy to change that, decade-long behavior and to switch to a new, maybe better world, and to first realize some dip. That's maybe the first challenge. The second challenge is, maybe the complexity Yeah, I would say the complexity probably that's one challenge, to touch everyone basically, and you come to how do we do procurement, for example, how do we how can we make it consumer relevant, although regenerative agriculture is not even known. There's a lot of complexity and a lot of different functions that need to be tackled. The third one, I was wondering if I should say that or not, but maybe it's a good pressure test in a way, because commodities prices are rising tremendously next year. So there's a huge challenge, and then of course sustainability, maybe we can postpone it 1 year. That discussion is there. But I don't think it's a challenge, because we have a tremendous buy-in really from top management, and as well from people, young people especially, in the organization are super passionate. So maybe it's not a challenge, it's a pressure test rather.
I suppose transparency is really key. I mean, the NGOs or the public at large, everybody is watching you, probably want to know facts and figures of your roadmap. How do you handle this pressure from the outside, and particularly also from NGOs?
No, that's very good. And maybe that would have been a good challenge, because what I personally also experience is we're doing all these good things, and instead of spreading all the good things and trying to make it bigger and get more people on board, sometimes I feel that media and journalists or some other people just try to find a flaw somewhere to attack us. Because tall trees catch high wind, and that's good, because in a way as well, that makes us very rigorous, that we don't want to take any risk and we really want to do it properly. But you're right. I think the key from my side is to be really transparent and humble. We haven't figured out everything. It is a big journey. It is a big change for a lot of the people, and suppliers and farmers and customers, etc. So I think the best way how to address that is just to be transparent, to share, to show the challenges, to show some vulnerability maybe as well. This and this is not perfect. And then to say, this is the path and this is what we are doing, and to focus on the actions and where we need support from the European Commission, from other players, from the farmers, and where we want to work together. I think that's the best way how to address it, to also move things forward and not get stuck somewhere.
What role does actually digitalization mean or play in your company?
So digital, okay, I think digital is everywhere, but also in this area, if I move it now to sustainability, digital can help us a lot. It can help us, also again end to end. If I think about farming, there's precision farming, for example, that you can look at. You can look at the soil health. Where do we need what? And then to reduce input as well. So digital starts from farming, and it ends up even with employees. There's great apps, and again, if you have the transparency to see your behavior, what you can change. You have, I don't know, starting from carbon footprint calculator, or maybe connecting yourself. If I buy this, then what is the impact on the farmer? Going back all the way. Digital can help quite a lot. So it's very closely linked to sustainability, next to all the other opportunities that digital offers. But also there is a risk on digital. I've watched Social Dilemma, which is quite eye-opening as well. So we need to watch out that we are not polarizing too much, and that we create as well, a breadth of different opinions and different solutions, not to get stuck.
Could you perhaps elaborate a little bit on the latest trends in food innovation?
Okay, so food innovation. I think now you see as well discussions on cultured meat, cultured proteins. I think with COVID as well, generally there has been the health trend even strengthened. So people are watching more, that they are healthy, that they have, good food to support their immunity and their resilience. So yeah, health direction for sure. On the go remains a trend as well, that people want to have convenience. They're on the go, faster, quicker. Bioorganic continues to rise. I would say then like protein drinks, but that's also linked to health. So I would say, yes, in a nutshell, maybe more healthier, more sustainable, more convenient. I think these are long-term trends.
Right. Actually, we are going to have two webinar sessions next year on cultured food, planted food, and also on vertical ocean, as they call it in Singapore. Now we have a question from Alan Jensen. He's General Manager at Danfoss in Kuala Lumpur. Please, Alan.
Thanks, Tony, and thanks, Katja. Very inspiring, and I have to say I admire Nestle. I've taken a big look at Nestle in Malaysia, which is very, very impressive. I've been here for over 100 years. I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, and something that you can easily digest. Number one, as a food company, you do a lot of refrigerated fruits. I think increasingly with ice cream, etc., etc. I've heard that you are only looking at natural refrigerants like ammonia and CO2. And I wanted to know if there are any thoughts within Nestle. Are you gonna move out of ammonia from a safety point of view? Are you gonna go to CO2 and make that? Do you have any thoughts on that? As a personal, very avid user of your new brand, Harvest Gourmet, plant-based foods, I'm actually very just very curious whether is this all natural ingredients? Is it healthy, or should I be careful not to eat it every day, which I am doing? So I'd like your personal advice on that. Then in the region that you're sitting, you've got Europe, you've got North Africa, you've got Middle East. Is Nestle, as many would be natural that you're running at different speeds in these countries? Are you pressing ahead everywhere with the same initiatives whenever you can find the opportunity to do so, or do you do it in different speeds? Palm oil is huge in Malaysia. So are you looking now to source RSPO, Roundtable of Sustainable Palm Oil, palm? Are you worried that with all the new initiatives from Europe, deforestation and so on, that which amongst others will be attacking palm oil? Are you worried that you will not be able to actually use products with palm oil? I have more. I think I'll leave it there to give other people a chance.
Plenty of questions and possibly short answers, Katja.
Yes, no, great question. So the first thing, to make it short, I will not be able to answer your first question. I think I would just be guessing. I really don't know. I can find out if you want, but I'm not an expert in the usage of the refrigerants for ice cream. On the plant-based food, first of all, I would say, I think the plant-based meat and meat alternatives, etc., are alternatives to meat. I would first of all say switch to vegetables, because that's the most natural and that's the healthiest. So I think just try to eat more vegetables. That's my first advice. And I think you have the best flavors in vegetables. So on your specific, is it healthy? Yes. So it is processed. I think this is why it's under scrutiny, but it's not unhealthy, I would say. So it's typically soy, or soy is usually used. So yes, it is processed, but I don't. We wouldn't put it in the market if there was any concern. We're very rigorous in terms of putting out there some products. But as a lot of things, always you have to be balanced. So as mentioned, just increase your vegetables, and you will be on the super safe side. On EMENA, so different speeds. So yes, for sure, when we prioritize different projects and areas, we are looking at, where can we create the biggest impact? And Europe helps in terms of regulations and what's happening there, much more than in Middle East and North Africa. The second point is, what is most consumer relevant, for example, and there again, Europe, it's more relevant than for people in the Middle East. I think that's going to change at some point. And then also cost efficiency. So these are some three of the prioritizations. So yes, we do a lot more. We try to do a lot more in Europe than Middle East, but we are not stopping, because in Middle East, for example, we have a big dairy business, and dairy is a big emission contributor. So we are working on dairy in Morocco, for example, or in Iran with our milk farmers there. And we are not stopping there at all, because we need to activate everything to reach -20 or -50. Everyone needs to contribute, so no one is left out. Every region is participating. And then the last question on palm oil, that could be a webinar on itself. I think palm oil as such, the key thing is not if to use or not to use palm oil, but the key is to use where it comes from. So that is that we can assure that there is no deforestation. So in that sense, yes, we are supporting and we are part of the RSPO palm oil initiative. We are on our key raw ingredients 90% deforestation free, and we're going to increase as well certified cocoa and certified coffee and 100% globally by 2025, which also includes the no deforestation. So the key thing is really the traceability, and especially on cocoa, it's difficult because they're smallholder farmers. So getting the traceability, the segregation, and the transparency that no deforestation is there, and then it's same time, you know, doing more multi-croppers. The positive thing, which is often neglected, is palm oil is not so easy to replace. It has quite good qualities in terms of food, and as well, it's quite efficient in terms of water usage versus other crops. So there are some advantages from palm oil.
We have another question from Jörg Hofstetter. He is professor at the Catch Business School here in Switzerland. Please, Jörg.
Thank you, Katja, for that overview. I've been following Nestle for over 2 decades now on the route and sustainability, which has been fascinating, and congrats to the team on the approaches there. And it's also great to see Antonia Wander, who shifted from procurement into CSR. I also guess that's a pretty strong statement. I just want to figure out on one element, because you refer to commodity prices, and the term of commodity. Commodity, for me and my understanding, is something that goes along in a way with intransparency, because it goes in bulks, it goes through trading, etc. And you have a major supplier, and represented also here by a participant, Markus Neuhaus, Barry Callebaut, who has been working on the Forever Chocolate initiative that tries to move away from the understanding of a commodity to a managed chain. And as the cocoa chain aside, could you elaborate on the other commodities and how you're, or if at all, you want to move away from the thinking of commodity? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jörg. You have given me some inspiration, because it's very often about the language that you use. So I think that's a good thought that I haven't had thought yet. But yes, I do think, so let me phrase it this way. At the moment, we are doing a lot of projects together with procurement, but also with responsible sourcing teams. And what we are trying to do is merge the two a little bit closer together. I mean, typically on cocoa and on coffee, as these are key ingredients, the responsible sourcing is fully embedded in the cocoa and the coffee. So to have the certified cocoa, the traceability, etc. Then on the other ingredients, I don't know, let's take sugar, for example, or other vegetables, etc. We are now doing quite a lot of projects on regenerative agriculture, and I think switching the farmers with that, automatically there will be longer term relationships and contracts, because we are not going to switch it. I mean, that is a journey together with the farmer. So I think automatically we'll come to expanding more and more long-term relationships with specific farmers. So I think still, in all transparency, some parts of, for some of the ingredients, there's the procurement, and then there's responsible sourcing, and that needs to merge closer together. Personally, I think on cocoa and coffee, that's already happening, and that's one and the same person basically.
I just want to ask a very last question, because we are running out of time, Katja. You're changing the company. Nestle is changing very rapidly, actually. What advice could you give to us how to drive change in our companies?
So my advice would be, first of all, get the transparency, start with facts and figures, like see where you can create the biggest impact. How can you drive the biggest impact really truly from the outcome perspective for planet and for society, not what the consumer thinks, but really from the honest impact. Get some facts and then focus on that, because there's so much to do. I think everyone needs some focus. That's my first advice. The second advice is to get momentum in your company, be bold and make a commitment, even though you haven't figured out yet how exactly you are going to get there. Just having that commitment from the top management, that drives a lot of momentum, because then it's not anymore a question if and when and how big is the commitment, but it's how are we going to get there, and you focus the momentum and the energy of the people on the solutions and on the actions. And as well, in that same thing, I think it was very smart of us to also put an interim target 2025. Because if you put something out there for 2030, maybe you start in 2 years and this year is too difficult, so let's start next year. I think the interim target and then mapping with facts the progress, putting it into the targets of top management, and actually we put it this year into every employee's target, personal bonus target, to contribute to the transformation of food system and with greenhouse gas targets. That is also, you know, focusing the energy on making it happen instead of discussing targets or this or that or trying to avoid it. And then the last one would be collaborate, reach out. We all need to collaborate, otherwise we're just not making it happen.
Great. Can you take one more question, Katja?
Of course, of course.
Anthony's from Athens. He's the Managing Director, Southeast Europe of DS Smith, is asking the very last question. Anthony's, please.
Yes, absolutely. And nice to see you again, Katja, after all this
Hi,
time.
Antonis. Good to see you.
It's a great pleasure. I'm working in the packaging industry now, and one of my concerns is all these consumer packs that are being thrown away. And Nestle is littering a lot of the world. I was littering a lot when I was working for Nestle with all the flow packs, the plastic bins, etc. What are we going to do there?
So in terms of plastic especially, we have, first of all, I start with a commitment. We have committed that we will reduce virgin plastic by 1/3 from the baseline of 2018 till 2025. So 30% and compensating the growth. So it's an absolute, it's quite a lot. So there's different areas. One is moving to different materials that are easier recyclable as well, and circular. For example, you know, moving to paper. Although again, there's also some challenges in terms of, you know, making it sure that it's food safe, etc. Then how do you do it with liquid? But okay, so the one element is switching to different materials or switching to monomaterials. Like on pet care, we have these, you know, multi-material pouches, which are very uneconomically recyclable only. So we're moving to monomaterials to increase the recycling. And the biggest thing for me really is, so next to reducing headspace and, you know, maybe these reuse and refill systems that are in the plan, but at the moment are very small in all transparency, where we want to scale up. But I think the biggest thing really is to drive and to support infrastructure. So the collection, the sorting, and then making sure that there is a recycling infrastructure. So on flexible plastic, it's very difficult because the value is not so high. So they are, you know, moving to maybe chemical recycling, supporting that. Then PET, increasing the content of recycled PET. So we have some waters that have now 100% recycled PET, and we see that the demand is higher than the supply. So I think that should trigger some as well more circularity, because there's money also to be made. So that's always a good reason to invest more and to expand the supply. So those would be the key things.
Thank you very much, Katja. Time is flying, so we have to come to an end. First, I want to thank you very much for your brilliant presentation and for the insights. We all learned a lot about Nestle and about sustainability. So thank you very much again, and we wish you and Nestle all the best and every success on your exciting journey to net zero. I would also like to mention again that we established a STARS alumni group on sustainability and food. If you're interested, please write to me and we shall connect all of you. Katja will also be there, and there will be certainly exciting discussions about sustainability and food amongst the alumni group. The next webinar will be on 13th of January with Michael Schindhelm. He's a world-famous writer, filmmaker, and an advisor on culture and arts. I hope to see you there. In the meantime, all the best. Stay healthy. Thank you and goodbye.